The night shift at the old Brindleview apartments was supposed to be quiet. Just another drizzle-soaked evening. A few flickering hallway lights, and the hum of the elevator that never seemed to stop at the right floor. Officer Grant Mallory and his K-9 partner, Lobo, were responding to a noise complaint. Nothing unusual. But when they reached the lobby, Lobo froze. The dog's muscles locked, teeth bared toward the elevator doors that refused to open. No amount of coaxing could move him. Hours later, when the security footage was reviewed, every officer who saw it went pale. Rain hissed against the glass entrance of Brindleview Apartments, smearing the reflection of red and blue lights across the wet floor tiles. Officer Grant Mallory shut off the siren and stepped out his cruiser, pulling his jacket tight against the damp chill. Lobo jumped out after him. The black GermanShepherd landing softly, eyes alert, nose working the air like radar. The call had come in just after midnight. Apartment 3B. Loud thumping, someone screaming, possible domestic. The dispatcher had said, though no one had confirmed seeing anyone. Just noise, a door slam, and then silence. Grant rubbed his neck. Let's make it quick, boy. Lobo's ears twitched, head turning toward the building before Grant even reached the door. The automatic lock was already jammed open with a folded piece of cardboard that sent a pulse of unease through him. This building had too many forgotten corners, too many stories. Inside, the lobby light flickered, humming like a dying insect. The wallpaper was peeling where rain had found a way into the ceiling. And right in the middle stood the old elevator, its brushed metal doors reflecting a ghostly slice of Grant's face as he approached. He pressed the call button. It buzzed, stopped, then buzzed again as if answering itself. Lobo stiffened. His hackles rose, a low growl vibrating in his chest. What is it? Grant muttered. He crouched beside the dog, one hand on the harness, another brushing his flashlight over the elevator seams. Nothing, just scratches along the bottom edge of the door, like something had tried to claw its way out. The air grew heavier. Then the elevator dinged. The door slid open, painfully slow, like the machinery hadn't been oiled in years. Empty, just a dim interior and the faint smell of mildew. But Lobo didn't move. He barked once, sharp and urgent. Then again, teeth bared toward the back corner of the elevator, a corner that looked completely empty. Easy, Lobo, Grant whispered. He tried stepping forward, but the dog pulled back, whining now, trembling in a way Grant had never seen. The elevator doors began to close. Lobo lunged, barking wildly, claws scraping tile. Grant stopped him with his arm and shone the light inside again. Something flickered at the edge of the mirror, a shape, tall, pale, like a silhouette bending out of frame. Then it was gone. Grant's pulse kicked up. Anyone in there? He called. No answer. He stepped back and radioed dispatch. Unit 17. I'm at Brindleview Apartments, lobby level. Elevator seems malfunctioning. K-9's reacting to something. Might be a false alarm, but... Static. Then a voice. Copy, 17. You're not the first call tonight. Same building. Last officer left after checking the basement. Reported nothing unusual. Grant frowned. Which officer? Sergeant Doyle. Grant froze. Doyle was his mentor, had been on medical leave for 3 weeks. He lowered the radio slowly. The air conditioning kicked on, pushing a faint smell toward him. Coppery. Wet. All right, he murmured. We're going up. He took the stairs. Lobo followed, uneasy. On the 3rd floor, apartment 3B's door was cracked open. A faint, rhythmic sound leaked out, a dripping noise. Water, maybe, or blood. Grant lifted his flashlight. Police, he called. No answer. He pushed the door open with his boot. The apartment was dark, except for the blue glow of a TV stuck on static. A plate lay shattered on the floor. The table was overturned. Then he saw it, a trail of wet footprints leading from the balcony to the hallway. Bare feet. He followed them to the doorway, but they stopped halfway, like the person had vanished mid-step. Lobo began barking again, spinning toward the window. The curtains fluttered inward, though there was no breeze. Something moved in the reflection of the glass. Again, that same faint silhouette, watching them from behind. Grant turned sharply, flashlight beam slicing the dark. Nothing. Only the faint sound of the elevator descending, far below. The next morning, Grant filed a report half-heartedly. No suspect found. Apartment empty. Possible prank call. But Lobo wouldn't eat. He wouldn't rest. Every time Grant walked past the elevator doors in the station, the dog would tense up. 2 days later, the Brindleview landlord called the department again. "Someone's been pressing the elevator buttons at night," he said. "When no one's there, you should check the camera feed." Grant and his partner, Officer Lena Hart, drove back out there that evening. Lena was younger, sharp, skeptical, always brushing off superstition. She carried herself with that tired city cop confidence that didn't belong in a town like Brindleview. "You really think the dog saw a ghost?" she teased as they entered the lobby. Grant didn't answer. He just turned toward the elevator. The landlord, Mr. Kellerman, was waiting with a stack of printed screenshots. His hands shook as he flipped through them. "This one's from Monday night. You were here then, right?" Grant leaned in. The timestamp matched. The image showed him standing with Lobo in the lobby. Then, the next frame, the elevator doors were opening. Behind him, the third frame, he was still facing forward. But in the reflection of the metal doors, a pale figure stood right behind his shoulder. Lena's smile faded. "Could be a camera glitch," she said quietly. But Grant's stomach sank. "Run the full video." They loaded it on the monitor behind the counter. The grainy black and white footage played, showing him and Lobo entering, the elevator opening. At first, nothing unusual. Then, as the doors closed, a blur moved across the camera, like a long shadow bending out of frame. Lobo began growling at the screen. "What the hell?" Lena whispered. Kellerman's face had gone gray. "It keeps happening," he said. "Every night, same time, 12:47. Someone presses the call button. The elevator opens. No one comes out. But," he swallowed, "something does." Grant stared at the screen as the elevator opened again in a live feed. Empty. Then the door started to close and froze midway. A hand pressed against the inside. The camera flickered. When it stabilized, the lobby was empty again. Outside, thunder rolled across the horizon. Grant felt the hair rise on his arms. "Pull footage from the basement, too," he said. Kellerman hesitated. "You don't want to see that one." "Show it." He sighed, opened a second file. The footage showed the basement corridor, pipes, old storage lockers, and a freight elevator that hadn't worked in years. At 12:47, the light flickered. Something moved near the elevator shaft. Something crawling, low to the ground, like a person dragging themselves forward. Then the timestamp glitched. Jumped. Now the figure stood upright, impossibly tall, limbs distorted by motion blur. It turned toward the camera, face indistinct, but wrong somehow. The feed cut out. Grant stepped back, cold sweat beating along his neck. That's edited," Lena stammered. But Kellerman shook his head. "I don't even know how to do that." They turned as Lobo began barking toward the rail elevator again. Deep panic sounds that echoed off the walls. The elevator dinged. 12:47 a.m. The door slid open. No one inside, but the air that poured out was freezing. Lobo's barking broke into a whine. He backed away, tail low, refusing to step forward. Grant's hand hovered near his weapon. "Lena." Then the lights flickered. The reflection in the elevator metal shifted, for just a moment, showing all three of them, plus a four shape behind them. Lena turned around. Nothing there. "Let's go," she whispered. But the elevator door stayed open, humming softly, as though waiting. Outside, as they reached the cruiser, Grant caught one last glimpse through the lobby glass. The elevator doors finally closed. But before they sealed shut, something pressed against the inside again, not a hand this time. A face. The rain hadn't stopped since that night. It fell in cold, relentless sheets, washing the color out of the small town of Brindleview until everything looked like an old photograph left out too long in the sun. Officer Grant Mallory sat in his cruiser outside the precinct, watching the water run down the windshield, the wipers moving too slowly to keep up. Lobo sat in the back seat, head resting on the divider, eyes locked on the station's glass doors. He hadn't barked since that night at the Brindleview Apartments. Not once. Grant still hadn't watched the full basement footage again. He told himself he didn't believe in whatever it showed, that maybe it was a compression glitch, a bad codec, something rational. But every time he closed his eyes, that blurred figure crawled behind his eyelids. The station door opened. Lena stepped out, coat over her shoulders, coffee in hand. Her hair was pulled back, dark circles under her eyes. "Morning," she said, climbing in beside him. "You look like you didn't sleep." "I didn't." "Still thinking about the footage?" Grant didn't answer. He started the car, the heater whining to life. Lena sighed. "I called tech. They're sending someone from the county to check the elevator cameras tonight. Might as well get it done before that landlord has another panic attack." Grant nodded slowly, then glanced in the rearview mirror at Lobo. The dog's ears twitched. Lena followed his gaze. "He's off too, huh? He won't go near elevators. Not even at the station." "Animals sense things," she said quietly, sipping her coffee. "Sometimes before we do." He looked at her, really looked. There was something in her tone, a tension she hadn't had before. "What do you mean?" She shrugged, eyes on the rain outside. "Forget it." But she didn't sound like she wanted to forget it. That evening, they met the technician in the Brindleview lobby, a heavy-set man named Earl, with a flashlight in one hand and a laptop in the other. "Old system," he said, plugging cables into the security hub. "Half these feeds are analog. Might be picking up reflections, distortions. Elevators do that a lot." Grant nodded, though his jaw tightened. "Right. Distortions." Lena walked the perimeter with Lobo, keeping the dog calm. The air in the lobby was stale again, heavy, like it hadn't been ventilated properly for years. The elevator stood silent, its brushed steel reflecting the flicker of the ceiling lights. "Camera feeds looping," Earl muttered. "You got interference on Channel 4. Lena leaned in. "That's the basement view, right?" "Yeah. Same time every night. 12:47. Grant's pulse picked up. "Can you play back last night's recording?" Earl frowned but clicked. The footage began to roll. Basement hallway. Empty. Then flicker. The elevator indicator blinked to life. Something moved across the far end of the frame. Just for a moment. A person, maybe. "Freeze that," Grant said. Earl did. He zoomed in. The image distorted, pixels breaking apart, but the outline became clearer. A man standing near the freight elevator, head tilted, as though staring straight into the camera. Only his face wasn't clear. The distortion had erased it completely, leaving only a dark, featureless oval. Earl exhaled. "Yeah, okay. That's messed up." Lena's arms folded tightly. Maybe someone broke in. Grant shook his head. "Look at the timestamp. That's 2 minutes after we left the building. Could be delayed feed, or something else." Lena turned to him. "You're not saying it's..." "I'm saying the camera saw something that wasn't supposed to be there." Earl closed his laptop quickly. "I've seen stuff like this before," he said, his voice lower now. "Buildings that shouldn't be standing. Ones built over things no one talks about anymore. I'll replace the system. But I'd get your dog out of here tonight." Grant's brow furrowed. "What do you mean? Build over things?" Earl hesitated, then leaned closer. "You ever heard of the old Brindle Mill? Used to be down the street before they tore it down in the 80s. "Yeah. Caught fire. Whole crew died." Earl nodded slowly. "They dumped the remains somewhere cheap. Somewhere close. Nobody talks about it, because they didn't file it right. But this building went up a year later. Same ground." Grant's gut tightened. "You're saying the foundation." "I'm saying there's ash in the soil under your feet." Later that night, Grant drove home through the empty streets. The rain had stopped, but fog hung low, clinging to the headlights like smoke. He parked outside his house, a one-story place at the edge of town, quiet except for the wind through the trees. Inside, Lobo went straight to his corner, curling up tight. Grant sat at the kitchen table and opened his laptop. He replayed the elevator footage from that first night again and again, in one frame. Something caught his attention, a faint reflection in the elevator panel near the buttons. A name tag. Doyle. Grant's blood ran cold. He rewound, zoomed in. It was faint, but it was there, the glint of a badge. His old mentor's badge. But Doyle hadn't been on duty in a month. He'd been out after the basement incident. Everyone knew it. Grant leaned back, shaking his head. No, it couldn't be. He checked the department files. Doyle's last reported call. Brindleview Apartments. Same building. Same time. 12:47 a.m. By 11:30, Grant was back in his cruiser, parked across from Brindleview again. The building's windows were dark, except for one light on the 5th floor. A flickering orange glow. He grabbed his flashlight. "Stay," he told Lobo. The dog whined softly but obeyed. Inside, the elevator stood waiting. Doors open, humming faintly. The panel lights flickered. Grant pressed the B button. The doors closed. The descent was slow, jerky. The fluorescent light above him buzzed and dimmed. When the doors opened, the basement air hit him, damp, metallic, and cold. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with rusted pipes and old lockers. His boots splashed through puddles as he moved forward, light cutting across the shadows. Halfway down, he saw it, the freight elevator. Door sealed shut, read, "Out of order," sign peeling from one corner. He crouched. The floor near was marked. Small, dark stains, too irregular for rust. He touched one. It was sticky. Blood. A sound echoed behind him, a dull metallic clang, like a chain falling. Grant spun around. Who's there? No answer. Just a faint whisper of air moving through the pipes. He turned back toward the freight elevator and froze. The out of order sign was gone. In its place, fresh fingerprints streaked the metal, long, dragging prints, as though someone had been pulled inside. The elevator light flicked on by itself. A low hum filled the hallway. Grant's heart pounded. He raised his flashlight, the beam trembling across the metal door. Then, slowly, the doors began to open. The air that poured out was freezing, thick, almost wet. The light flickered, stuttered, and for an instant, he saw a figure standing inside. Doyle, uniform stained, skin grayish, eyes hollow. Grant stumbled back. "Jesus, Doyle, what happened to you?" Doyle tilted his head slightly. His mouth moved, but no sound came. Then, faintly, like a whisper buried in static, "Help me." Basement they never left. The doors slammed shut. Grant lunged forward, slamming his palm against the button. Nothing. The elevator wouldn't respond. He ran back to the stairwell, nearly tripping as he reached the 1st floor. Lobo was there, barking wildly at the elevator again. Just like that first night. Grant grabbed the radio. "Dispatch! This is Mallory. Send back up to Brindleview Apartments now. Officer down. Possible hallucination or static drown him out." Then, through the noise, a voice crackled. Grant, his blood froze. It was Doyle's voice. Lena arrived 15 minutes later. The building was dark, silent except for the elevator hum echoing through the halls. "Grant," she called. No answer. She followed the sound to the lobby. The elevator doors were half open, light flickering inside. And sitting in front of them was Lobo, silent, head bowed, trembling. Lena crouched. "Hey, boy, where's Grant?" Lobo's eyes lifted to hers, then to the elevator. Lena stood, heart hammering. "Grant?" she said again, louder this time. The elevator doors opened wider. Inside, nothing. Just a faint smell of rain-soaked concrete. She turned to leave, but something on the floor caught her eye. A badge. Mallory. The next morning, the building's maintenance man found the elevator stuck between floors. The system logs showed it had gone down to the basement at 12:47 a.m. When the county tech tried to review the footage, the files were gone. Every single one, except one still image left in the cache. Time-stamped 12 hours, 47 minutes, and 22 seconds. It showed the elevator doors open. Officer Grant Mallory standing inside, and behind him, a second figure, both looking straight at the camera. Morning came gray and brittle, the kind of morning that felt borrowed from someone else's winter. Brindleview Apartments sat quiet beneath the low clouds, its bricks slick with dew, its windows dull and lifeless. A police barrier stretched across the entrance now, yellow tape fluttering in the wind like tire flags. Lena Hart stood in front of it, coffee growing cold in her hand, staring at the building that had already taken 2 officers she trusted. She hadn't told anyone about what she'd seen in the elevator, about the badge lying on the floor, because she couldn't explain it. No one could. She'd watched the replay from the security system over and over that morning. The screen had glitched, the timestamp froze, and in that frozen second, she'd seen Grant look directly at the camera, not with fear, but with something else, resignation, as if he'd already understood where he was going. The department called it a disappearance. She called it a mistake. That night, Lena returned to Brindleview alone. She wasn't on duty. She didn't sign in. She just drove out there in her unmarked car, headlights off, the town asleep behind her. Lobo was waiting. The dog had refused to stay at the station kennel. He'd escaped somehow. The night shift officer found his harness cut clean, and when Lena pulled up, she found him sitting by the building entrance, motionless, staring at the doors. His leash lay beside him, like he'd been waiting for someone to pick it up. Lena crouched, brushing her fingers through his fur. "You knew he'd come back here, didn't you?" Lobo's ears twitched. He let out a low whine, then glanced toward the lobby. She hesitated. "One more time," she whispered. They entered. The lights hummed overhead, flickering just enough to make her doubt they'd ever work properly. The air was colder inside, the smell stronger now, metallic, damp, faintly sweet. The elevator stood at the far end of the lobby. Its doors were open, waiting. Lobo stopped short, hackles rising, teeth bared. "It's all right," she said softly, her voice trembling. "He's down there, isn't he?" The dog didn't move. She stepped forward alone. The elevator light flickered as she entered. She pressed the B button. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a deep mechanical groan rolled through the shaft, and the doors slid closed. The descent was slow, uneven. Her reflection in the elevator panel jumped in and out of shadow. The hum grew deeper, more distorted, like the sound of a distant scream buried under metal. When the doors opened, she was in darkness. Only her flashlight cut through it, a weak cone of light slicing through the stale air. The basement was worse than she remembered. The walls were cracked, pipes leaking slow drops that hit the concrete with a sound like a ticking clock. She moved carefully, calling out Grant. Her voice echoed back, thin and lonely. Something shifted at the far end of the hallway, the faint scrape of a boot on cement. She aimed the light and froze. Grant stood by the freight elevator. His uniform was torn, his skin pale, eyes glassy but focused. "Grant." Her voice broke. He didn't answer at first, just stared at the floor. Then, softly, "You shouldn't have come." Lena stepped closer. "Where the hell have you been?" "We thought you were." "Dead." He smiled faintly. "Maybe." Lobo began growling behind her, low and uneasy. "Grant, what happened down here?" He looked past her, toward the elevator she'd come from. "It's not the building," he said. "It's what's underneath it." Her pulse quickened. "Underneath?" He nodded slowly, pointing to the freight elevator. "They buried the mill here. Not just the ash, the men, the shift that burned, the ones no one claimed. They never left. They built this place on top of them, sealed it off." Lena shook her head. "That's impossible." Grant stepped forward, and she noticed it, the sound his boots made. Wet. Each step left a faint, dark footprint on the concrete. "Grant, you're bleeding." He looked down. The blood wasn't fresh. It was blackened, old, like soot. "I tried to leave," he said softly, "but it doesn't let you once you see it." "See what?" The freight elevator dinged. Both of them turned. The door slid open, revealing darkness beyond darkness. No walls, no floor, just a void that seemed to breathe. A wind came from it, cold and damp, carrying whispers that didn't sound like words. Grant's face tightened. "That's where Doyle went. He said he heard voices calling him back." I heard them too. Lena took a step back. You're not going near that thing. He smiled again, faintly. You can't stop it. It's already been waiting. The wind grew stronger. The lights above flickered. Lobo barked once, sharp and terrified, pulling against a leash. Grant. Lena shouted, grabbing his arm. We're getting out. But his skin felt cold, heavy. He looked at her, really looked at her, and in that moment she saw it. The faint outline of another face overlapping his in the flickering light. Doyle's. Lena stumbled back, gasping. No, you're not. The floor vibrated. The walls shuddered. A groaning noise rose from deep below, like something old and hungry was waking up. Lobo lunged, grabbing the sleeve of Grant's jacket, pulling him back from the freight elevator. Grant's expression twisted with pain, or maybe relief. He wants you to see, he said, voice trembling. Just once. The elevator's interior began to glow faintly, a dull orange light, like fire behind smoke. The hum deepened, and then Lena saw them, shapes moving inside, people burned and blackened, faces melted into one another, hands pressed against the glass, eyes hollow. The workers. Grant's body jerked. He fell to his knees, clutching his head. Make it stop? She grabbed him, trying to drag him away. Grant, look at me. It's not real. But he was staring past her, eyes locked on the elevator. They're still here. The orange light flared and the doors slammed shut. The sound that followed was mechanical. It was human, a deep, collective moan, like dozens of voices crying out from under the floor. Lobo howled. The power cut. Darkness. Then silence. When Lena came to, she was lying at the bottom of the stairwell. Her flashlight flickered weakly beside her. The basement was empty. No Grant. No elevator light. No sound except the faint dripping of water. Lobo limped toward her, whining softly. His fur was matted with soot. She crawled to her feet, clutching the wall. Grant. Nothing. The freight elevator door was gone, sealed over with smooth concrete, as if it had never existed. Days later. Lena sat in her car outside the precinct, the morning sun pale and cold through the windshield. On the seat beside her lay a file, Grant Mallory, marked missing in action. She'd added a note of her own. Presumed deceased. Last seen Brindleview Apartments, 12:47 a.m. Lobo sat quietly in the back seat, staring out the window. The department had decided to condemn the building. Kellerman had already left town. No one wanted to touch it. She reached back and stroked Lobo's fur. We're done with that place, okay? The dog didn't react. Just stared ahead, ears still. Then quietly he growled. Lena froze. She followed his gaze. Across the street, the door of the abandoned Brindleview Apartments was open again. And inside, through the dusty glass of the elevator lobby, the indicator light flickered to life. 12:47. Lena felt the chill crawl up her neck. She reached for the ignition, but before she started the car, she looked once more at the building. And for just a moment, in the reflection of the elevator's metal doors, she saw him, Grant, standing there, hand resting on Lobo's harness, watching her leave. If stories like this make you feel something, that quiet chill that lingers long after you finish reading, stay close. There are more waiting in the dark, where memory and fear blur into one.